that you've got common needs around the planet. Doesn't matter where you are, what ethnicity, what cultural setup, whether you're north, south, east, west, first world, second world, third world, there's common needs that we all have. And understanding what those common needs are can enable you to produce a technology which can traverse all those different places at the same time.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Engati CX. And today we have the pleasure of welcoming none other than Steve Towers to our interview series. But before that, let's just begin with a quick introduction of what Engati is. Engati is the world's leading multilingual no-code chatbot platform available across 14 channels with 25,000 bots created across 186 countries in every domain and use case. Engati has also been recognized as a top platform by Inc.com, TechWorld, CIO, and many others. We run the Engati blog, the video channel, and of course, the Engati CX podcast, receiving upwards 300,000 visitors annually. And now for our amazing guest, Steve. Business entrepreneur Steve Towers has founded over a dozen companies and associations. A visionary who coined the term BPM back in 1992 when he built the first global BPM community. After conducting a series of workshops and lectures, in 1996, he finally launched the world's first BPM training course. He then went on to author Outside In, The Secret of the 21st Century Leading Companies, often referred to as a manifesto for business transformation, according to Amazon. He also co-authored many other best-selling books like The Process Tactics Playbook, Foundation for Customer Centricity, and Dare, which, by the way, is coming soon. He was the recipient of the Lifetime Achievement Award for contribution to business at the Gartner's Annual Summit in 2007. Steve now frequently chairs and keynotes the major conferences and acts as an advisor to global leadership teams and several leading companies. Welcome to the show, Steve. Such an honor to have you on board.
Well, thank you very much. I don't know how I followed that, honestly. And you mentioned Dare is already released. It came out in February this year.
Oh, okay.
It became an Amazon #1 bestseller. And it's the story of a transformation of an organization, putting in place all those things that you just mentioned over the last few years. And it took 3 or 4 years to transform the world's largest utility company. So we can touch on that a little bit later if you like.
All right, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The book is out. Go grab it. But before we get to all the amazing conversation we have lined up for you, we have something really special for you at the end of the interview, all the viewers. So just stay tuned for that and you will find out what it is. So Steve, are you ready to jump in?
I'm absolutely ready. Yes, fire away.
All right. So shooting the first question to you, Steve, is, you talk of innovation and, innovating innovation as such. So, which is a very interesting phrase on its own. So how would you describe the concept to our viewers over here?
Okay, we've many of us will have been trained in innovation in different ways, so design thinking processes and things like that. Mm-hmm. And of course, we apply that sort of innovation thinking into our organizations. The challenge for many organizations is that the structures that they've got that deliver their business at the moment were never designed to meet the challenges of the third decade of the 21st century. And so as a consequence, when we were looking at what is the next practice of the companies we all respect around the world, the Amazons, the Ubers, the Zaras, the Zappos, those sort of people, how do they innovate? What is can we codify that as a practice? So that set us off on this track of let's try and innovate innovation. So that's the phraseology. And basically what it says is, look, we're not trying to necessarily improve what we're doing at the moment. We're trying to identify what is the customer need, how can we best align to achieve it, and what are the components of achieving that need. So if you're distilling it down, what is innovated innovation? It's a way of stripping away all the noise, all the complexity, looking at the bare bones of, say, an experience or a process, and by innovating around that, you transform everything else.
Right.
So it's an exciting approach. It's something I love working with organizations to do because, of course, they get so many benefits from it that previously we couldn't get through our standard innovation approaches.
Right. Yeah. And I think a lot of it is actually picking up after the COVID era, right? I mean, a lot of innovation with respect to, let's say, even video calls and the way we interact with people has been happening. And we also see that there is a huge change in, customer behavior also. So my second question is somewhat around that. So Steve, has customer behavior changed in this pandemic? And what would you advise companies that need to align to the new normal or the new abnormal? And what would the future hold for customer experience all in all as such?
Okay, I think you're right to bring that point up because, of course, the pandemic has changed all our lives,
That's true.
and some of that, has been of great benefit. It's brought forward things that should have been happening in organisations years ago. So I like to look on the silver lining part of the cloud. But in terms of customer behaviours changing, it's caused us as customers, particularly in lockdown scenarios, to do a lot more research about the companies that we're buying our services from. It's also caused those B2Bs to challenge themselves in terms of thinking about how should supply chain logistics and things like that work. But ultimately, what drives everything any organization does is the customer. So I'm finding that the focus on the real needs of the customer, not the wants, but the real needs of the customer, they're getting front and center across so many different organizations now, simply as a question of survival. It's not a question of, oh, let's do that because it's an interesting thing to do and it's the next phase. It's like, how do we get ourselves out of this hole now that, the pandemic's put us in? What do we need to do? So the customer behaviors themselves have become much more, I talk about the enlightened customer.
Right.
So customers want choice. They're very promiscuous in exercising that choice. They also want to have their very high expectations met. And so what we see, for instance, is expectations aren't informed. If, say, I go to the bank, I'm not contrasting my bank with another bank. I'm contrasting my bank with the service I last flew on Emirates. Right. Why can't the banking service be like that? So we have these customers now, and I think Apple coined a good phrase a few years ago, was customers have become prosumers.
That's true.
So it's not whether we're in a B2C situation or a B2B. And, one of my colleagues talks about there's nobody in a B2B anymore. You're either B2B to B2C or you're a direct B2C. So I like to think that the enlightened customer is informing all our decisions, and that idea that we as organizations who are delivering services and products to them really have to get beyond, keep asking customers, are we doing the right thing? To actually figuring out what the right thing is and delivering that need.
That's correct. And I think that's a very interesting point that you mentioned, that the line between B2B and B2C is actually blurred now, and customers are actually expecting a lot from businesses. And it's very important for us to kind of tailor our approaches accordingly. But, organizations also grapple with a lot of directional advice for setting up culture also, right? If you're talking about that, but be customer centric, be employee centric, be business centric, since there are no employees and no customers without business, of course. So what is your view of how organizations should approach these as priorities for decision making as such?
Well, and again, this is based on the sort of codification of next practice. It's really to think about, if we don't have happy employees, then we're not going to have happy customers. Exactly. So your starting point, as Richard Branson, the Virgin CEO, and he runs 400 companies globally. So even through the crisis, finding ways to navigate that, he knows if he can't keep his people, with the right tools and the right techniques and the capabilities to be able to deliver process, then it's all just it's all just words. It's not. You've actually got to be able to walk that talk. Sure. So I see the organizations who are most progressive, and I think of people who we all know across social media, people like Zappos, and it's quite a good response when people say, yeah, but we're not a shoe retailer. And you go, yeah, but they're not a shoe retailer first and foremost. That's the product they've chosen to deliver to market. Right. But the way they do that, the way they structure themselves, the wow factor and so on, is we can all learn from that. It doesn't matter what industry we're in. If we're not engaging our employees to be successful in their own right and be happy, be content, and want to, whether it's to attend work virtually, 10 working teams, or whatever which way we're doing it, we've got to see to that first. That's the first thing. We've got to put our customers first. We have to put our employees first.
Right. And especially during the COVID era and the post-COVID era, I think this is one of the most biggest changes that a lot of corporations and businesses are going to see. That showing more empathy and having more customer centricity and employee centricity, which will actually bring a lot of advantages for the business also. But now, Steve, having said that, let's talk about something which is in trend, especially post-COVID, and that's AI and automation. So what role do you see emerging tech like these, like AI and automation, play in the organizational context as such?
Okay. Well, you've probably seen as part of my history, I was director of technology for one particular large US bank. And it was always the case of the bright, shiny boxes syndrome, the technologists wanting to bring those into businesses. One of the things we saw in the early days of BPM was BPM getting railroaded into the software side of things rather than the organizational transformation. Now, have things changed in the last 30 years? I'd like to think so, but to a very large extent, there are organizations who are automating their mess, and they end up with an automated mess. So our sort of cry from the hilltops is, look, figure out what the right thing to do is for your customer first, and then automate it. Otherwise, you'll end up in that situation, as I used to get sometimes, was the automation itself will get blamed for the failure of something, when that isn't the root cause. Automation is a fantastic, the digital side of customer experience is so powerful. But if we're automating a mess, we just end up with an automated mess. Now, why does that happen? We empower our sales guys and our marketing organizations to go out there and sell our products and service if we're in the IT space. And if they do a really good job, they could end up doing that, automating the mess people have got. So I always say, whether it's big enterprise systems or whether it's bringing in RPA or chatbots, whatever it is, when we're engaging around those technologies, make sure they're aligned with a successful customer outcome. Then you won't fail, and you will be seen as the local heroes.
That's true. That's true. But Steve, do you see a lot of customers being served by a push to self-service, automation chatbots or intelligence querying through voice and other enabling means?
I really think it depends on customer needs. All too often, there's that cry of technology for the sake of it. So let's automate these processes. And yet, at a very simple level, we all know the frustration of getting caught in a call center queue. Your call is very important to us. You're number 26 in the queue. Well, the two things don't go together, do they? So there's levels of automation which actually get in the way of delivering a successful customer outcome. But when it's applied in the right way, so we've articulated the successful customer outcome and what the real needs are, we can then put automation on steroids to actually deliver against that need. As we've already indicated, if you've got enlightened customers, the way enlightened customers consume the services and products from organization depends on the channel they're moving across. So what might work in terms of, say working on my sort of smartphone, contrasted with working on the laptop, contrasting with accessing things through the TV. I don't want the same interaction. I want something that's designed for that environment. So I think there's a place, and I'm a techie at heart. I like playing with new technologies and things like that. But it's also gets a bad name because of that pervasion of some of the messes that have been automated. So I try to find those case studies, those organizations who've really used it well, and then use those as demonstrations. Like if you get this customer bit right first, the successful customer outcome, and then you align everything you're doing to delivering it, and that's your people, your processes, your IT, your digital capability, right the way through to that end result for the customer, you won't go too far wrong.
That's right. So that's beautiful put also. But Steve, let's talk about something about customers now that, all these customers are increasingly global. They're connected, they're mobile and 24/7 as these businesses are moving online. So how would an organization create enablers to ensure one size fits all in such a very client base as such?
Well, that's a terrific sort of observation and question that goes with it, is that you've got common needs around the planet. Doesn't matter where you are, what ethnicity, what cultural setup, whether you're north, south, east, west, first world, second world, third world, there's common needs that we all have. And understanding what those common needs are can enable you to produce a technology which can traverse all those different places at the same time. There's certain areas which we would say are more progressive and more mature, and then they could use, more sophisticated level of technology. But there's no need to differentiate it in the way that some people have done in terms of the old geographies around the planet. It's again that articulation of need of customer. The way I like to think about that, again, that phrase outside in is if we categorize customers by need rather than segment them by circumstance. Segmenting by circumstance, for instance, would treat India different to China, different to the US, different to Australia, and different to Europe. And yet the needs across those domains may well be the same. So if we categorize the customers by need and then align our technologies to deliver against that need, it doesn't matter what language we're speaking, the technology will enable us to be able to get that service and product in a better way as a customer. So I like how we can take IT as a great leveler, whereas segmentation used to look at IT from the point of view of, okay, this segment of customers is different to that segment because they live in a different place, they've got a different mean income, they have different familial backgrounds. Whereas if we categorize on need, we all need food and water, we all need shoes, we all need a roof over our heads. We can categorize all those customers by those same needs and then deliver products and service which deliver that. So I think that's a big change as well that I see in those more mature outside-in organizations.
That was smartly answered. The core needs of humans, they don't change, and no matter where you are from. So I think, that could be a great point. But yeah, Steve, this was amazing. The conversation was great. So many fresh ideas. I have one question left for you, pretty open-ended. Do you have any other thoughts that you would like to leave our audience with today?
I think I've already banged that drum in terms of, regardless of what business or what you're doing, whether you're a one-person band or whether you're running the CEO of the largest enterprise on the planet, then there's lessons we can all learn from each other. Now, I refer to those lessons as next practice. So you'll see a lot of the things that I talk about around codifying that next practice and giving access, for people to it. So look beyond the shiny boxes and look beyond the claims of just getting another certification and look to learn from those people who've actually been there and done it, in the sense of they've already done the transformation. That if you look at companies like Amazon and everybody goes, "Oh, Steve, we're not in Amazon. Stop talking about Amazon." And I go, well, Jeff Bezos, he ran a bookshop. He's now the richest guy on the planet. Do you think there's something to learn from that? His whole idea of customer experience and customer obsession is something we could all take learning from. So if I was to leave people with just a thought, it's that we could all be that Jeff Bezos in our own world. We can all sort of fly that flag and show what it is like to become customer obsessed rather than internally obsessed.
That's what it is. And beautifully said. Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Towers for you. Thank you so much, Steve, for giving us your time. Your insights were really valuable. And I know for a fact that our audience is really going to enjoy this interview. And guys, don't forget to check out the latest bestseller, Dare, which is out now. Go grab that book. I'm pretty sure so much value is going to be there. So don't forget to do that. And also, like I mentioned in the beginning of the interview, we've got a little surprise for you guys. So if you stuck around for this long, we're so excited to announce that our ebook, The Evolution of Customer Experience, is out and available. And it's completely free to download. Check the link in the description for more details. And we'll be back with a brand new episode of for Engati CX and with a new expert soon. So stay tuned and we'll see you around for the next one. Thank you, Steve.
Cheers, guys. Thank you very much. Enjoyed it. Thank you.